A lot of the rainwater harvesting also needs to be like greatly communal, because if you cannot do it, like if I want to construct a 1 lakh or 2 lakh liter tank, rainwater harvesting tank, or the water of which I can use on a daily basis, it costs a lot of money to get it done. Because if you want to, like, if you just want to recharge the aquifer, which we don't have so much of. I mean, okay, yes, if you're not living in a city, great, but if you're on the outskirts, you still have a lot of area where you can potentially, you know what I'm saying, like you have the soil for the water to seep in. It is functioning ecosystem. But when you're living in cities where you just have like buildings and buildings, matchbox after another matchbox.
I haven't seen monsoon in last 10 years because I was never in India during that time. I mostly visited between November and February. That was the max. And that's why I'm also very much curious because a lot has happened in these 10 years. And surprisingly, in my last visit to India, I was talking to a relative of mine about my memory of from the childhood regarding the wells in the homes. So, yeah, well, I come from Jhansi, and I have seen those houses in the city, like typical city centrums, uh, where at least there were some houses which had the wells, and I mean, I would be very keen and curious to know, how does it really work, and then some explanation would be triggered. But I got to know in my last conversation, I think a few months back, that what I was seeing as a child in the city area still were like the last of the few wells which survived. Majorly, like it was known that it's mostly the houses from the descendants of Marathas, and it was interesting. But lately, because of the space and maintenance, a lot of people have got rid of those wells from their houses. And I was also visiting one project, like real estate project, and they did not had any connection from the municipality, the water connection, and they dug up like borewells, and that was the only promise they had to to serve the whole community, or the buildings with the compound wall, just with the borewell. So it's crap for the health, I think. With it could be quite intense, that water, I think. Plus, there is no scope for. I mean, you see such big gated communities, and there is no scope for wells. I'm surprised to see that, but I think probably you also see firsthand by just working everything around those things. What's your take on this? Like, why is it so hard? Especially if we just take the example of what existed in the recent past, from where we grew up, like 90s, probably. How do you see like this wells disappearing like altogether?
Okay, when we talk about wells, or I think let's if we broaden it and then talk about any kind of community or personal rainwater harvesting structures. See now, first of all, that wisdom is absolutely lost in many cases, right? Not a lot of people know anymore how to dig a well, even if they wanted to. That is one thing. The other thing is also, with erratic rainfalls and with us having access to the bore wells, because what we are doing is we are tapping into confined water, which then seems like it's endless. It feels like there is endless water availability to us. It's not true. It's not endless. It will end, but we don't realize it. So now what happens when you can get water on the tap of a switch versus when you have to, like, go to a place, because a lot of places didn't have their own wells in their houses as well. There would be communal wells, right? Rainwater harvesting has always been community projects. If you look at the past also, And I would like to discuss some more rainwater harvesting structures on the same. So people don't know how to maintain it. They do not have the patience to maintain it. And wells or any structures, they don't have a lot of respect amongst us also, you know. We have stopped respecting. This was the wisdom of our ancestors, and today we highly disrespect it. You cannot go to a city and tell somebody, "Oh, I think we should make a well for our rainwater." They'll not. I mean, first of all, that well might not even function because of the way, because of the way the city planning has been. And because of borewells, the water levels have continued falling down, right? So then the well which was accessible to you, the water which was accessible to you all year round doesn't do justice. Like, okay, Goa still is one place where you have a lot of wells, functioning wells. But then at the same time, you also have wells which don't function because the water levels, especially if you're near the tourist places, they don't function so well because, you don't have the amount of, because the water has fallen down scale. So
I
yeah,
think the strange thing is, like, you will be surprised to know that I know a city where the bore wells are like community bore wells. So you don't have a supply of regular water. Probably, it's scarce and it's not possible. So the bore well is a community bore well, and everybody gets a supply through that bore well. And I discovered also in my recent trip, I didn't know something like this could exist because it's Shivpuri in Madhya Pradesh. Yeah, I mean, it's such a green place, and I was surprised. I would always imagine when someone says, we are going to get the water from the borewell, I would always think that it's from the private, inside the house, which apparently is also not possible because the water level is already so low, you know. So there is an idea that I really don't know the planning, how it is, and there probably are challenges. It's not just like, and people have to survive. It's the capacity they need, the households primarily. So probably they came with a solution that, yeah, it's a community borewell, and they will get it from this time. And then there is some alternative, so they combine this borewell supply. Through the community. They combine it with the regular water supply, which is from some river. I don't know, maybe that's a scarce, so it's not always available, not every day. So it was something new I learned, that some kind of concept. Probably they had the community wells in the past, which now transformed into the community bore wells. That could be the case. I don't know. But the more you travel and you see different places and try to understand the common daily routines and along with it the problems, then you understand, oh, it's very different per geography. Also, Shivpuri is very rocky and has a very different. It has red sand, and it has like it's projected more like a hill station in that area. It's a beautiful place. uh, but coming to the water, I think there are some challenges. Like there's a hard water because of this rocky thing and borewell supply. But yeah,
the problem is, okay, so a lot of the why do we not have access to water anymore also is because nature does a lot of rainwater harvesting in its own ways. It functions quite well. You have areas of depression, you have ponds, you have like the streams flow into and then get collected in a big pool somewhere. When it comes to the community aspect of it, like again, I'm focusing and emphasizing most of the rainwater harvesting structures that were constructed were either commissioned by the kings or, so it was that's why if you look at any place like in any villages, if we still go or you know, if we go to any villages, you would somehow like if it's not very exploited, you could still find old ponds, big dugout ponds. They were dug out, and what would happen is that this is done, and this is for the community. So everybody has access to. Okay, casteism is another thing in India, so maybe not everybody had access to that as well. But let's not go there. But when it comes to the rainwater harvesting, they knew what they were doing, and the community would maintain it, because we need to understand when we are creating any structure. And when I'm saying structure, these are not concrete structures which people were creating. There were no JCBs at the time. So, if you had to dig up well, if you had to dig a pond, if you had to do anything, it was with your two bare hands and some tools. It was a lot of hard work. So the entire village would come together to make a pond.
It has to be made also sustainable because, I mean, if the water fills in, you need to make sure the walls are able to sustain it.
So the even with the walls, like the what I want to say is, like, it necessarily was not like how when we do natural ponds today. I put a dam wall underneath the underground, and a lot of places didn't, because they didn't, like, simply you don't have. I have access to JCB. I can dig it out. I can dig out that wall and I can backfill it, and I can, like, let the JCB walk on it, compressing the soil and whatnot. So a lot of places also didn't have access. So they would do simple structures, but it was still like community effort. Now, if we talk about ponds, they need desilting every now and then. Because what happens if your pond is at a lower, of course, a pond is at a lower area compared to, it's in either in a depression or it's at a lower area where you're trying to catch and store the water. If uphill, if the slope upwards is not having enough tree cover, what would happen? All your soil will wash in the pond. And if it keeps on happening, your pond's volume keeps on reducing. Then your pond's not that functional anymore. It's not going to help as much as it used to. See, so it was kings could commission the project, but it was the villagers' responsibility to keep the project functioning, keep the water harvesting structures functioning. And when that stopped, like slowly, because now also their children, like, and their children, it just like somewhere we have really shifted from our roots into living a life which is,
It has happened at a mass scale.
yeah.
That's the terrible thing, you know.
But also, you know what, like, of these structures, like, okay, the dams have come in place now, and like now there are multiple studies which have, like, really said dams are not doing good, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to catch catch the water which moves so fast. There's a proposal to make a dam somewhere. It got approved also. It's somewhere in northeast, if I'm not wrong. And the this place where the water falls, it's in such a crazy speed that probably a dam wall cannot hold it. But anyways, these are the projects also which are getting the sanctioning and funding from the government, of various kinds. So, like this very interesting project in Rajasthan. Rajasthan has a lot of johars, which are just regular pond. You find a area of depression or slope, and then you just dig out a pond and you create one wall. So you dig out the soil and you put it on the lower slope, and it becomes very simple. No rocket science there. They're not doing anything like. Um, and over the time, of course, they were neglected. And then there's this organization called Tarun Bharat Sangh. No, yeah, Tarun Bharat Sangh, if I'm not, TBS. And what was the name of the person? Rajendra Ji. So he restored one Johar, and because they restored one, which means what they had to do was they desilted that Johar, and because they desilted it, it started catching water again, and because the water would then recharge the underground, right? Also, one thing I want to bring focus on is our ancestors deeply worked towards storing water underground, not overground. We do the opposite. We take from underground and we store overground. They really understood the value of, if you have your water underground, your wells they will work all year round, you know. So when they did it in one place, and they saw that the farmers greatly benefited from it. The communal life improved. The villagers got really excited to restore another, and slowly they have now. I think a few years back, the study came out or something. They had restored 13,800 of these structures in near Alwar in Rajasthan. I mean, they started near Alwar, but I think they did it probably in a lot of places. But so many existing structures could have, they were able to restore, you know. So that's the thing. We have not really valued what was there. You know, Delhi has really amazing rainwater harvesting structures which are non functional today. And they were, because Delhi has also been this capital for different kingdoms. It has some of the most beautifully massive architecture and structures which were built. If only we could have sustained, you know, maintaining them so that they could function for what they were made, doesn't happen. Also, like putting all the buildings on top doesn't help, you know. The wastelands or the wetlands, which are plenty in India, they're constantly getting backfilled. And, you know, no, people are constructing there. It's just if you have, I mean, you cannot, but illegally you prove, you do stuff, you backfill it's happening. Like where it used to be a wetland, wasteland, is now someone's very fancy house. So if you keep on filling the wastelands, like backfilling them with soil, and then what do you think the water which used to go there, what would happen to that? How do you think your house would not sink at some point? Like these things are very, you know, in the name of development. In Chennai, per se, as well, a lot of tanks. So, you know, there were a lot of tanks in India, different types of tanks. So there were a lot of tanks, and they were connected, interconnected with channels, and you know, they were connected to the rivers. And on paper, there are a lot of tanks, but if you would go in person to look at some of those tanks, there stands a building now. So, you know, like at some point, because they were kept neglected. So that's the thing. No, any of these structures, they need a lot of maintenance. And that maintenance is not like some rocket science. It needs labor intensive maintenance, you know. If we would just sustain it, understand it, respect it, have laws around it. Like if we would have had laws around restoring these water bodies, restoring all the wells which are in some villages, you know, let's not even come to the cities. But the villages which have wells and they're not functioning, it's not very hard to restore them or make them functional again. But the villagers are not interested today because their ancestors, like their fathers and forefathers, knew how to do it. They just simply don't know it. Some of them know some value, but like not everybody does know. And we are also in this modernization phase where people who have lived their life a certain way, certain modern life, are now going back to the roots where people like us, we don't know much about the craftsmanship at all. We don't have the idea, the knowledge, the awareness. And then people who had it, their children were not interested in taking it forward, so they want to move and be the city life, or live a life where they have a couch in their house, they have a TV, they have an air conditioning because it's too hot. And well, you can't blame them for having those ambitions or desires. So it just is a circular, vicious loop to be in. But yeah, then there are projects like in different parts of the country also.
Would
Like
Would you like to mention some of the projects, like, or maybe some examples, which could serve as a great inspiration for, some kind of education or some kind of thought provoking stance for some people who are probably listening to us, or just because I think at the fundamental level we also lack a lot of education around it, like a basic awareness. So it would be lovely to, on a positive note, if you can share some nice examples and some nice projects, that one can take inspiration. It could be from anywhere in the geography of India or outside as well, because I think within India also it varies a lot.
Of course, for sure. Like, so again, like as this particular organization is working towards restoring the johars and rainwater harvesting structures, and they are very particular about one thing, that they don't go and please people to do it. They only work with people who want the change.